on coal trains or in this area. Another railroad that fits that bill is the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. L&M was a big coal hauler. B&O, Western Maryland, those railroads make sense to be shown around here. But there are just as many other railroads that kind of look out of place in coal service or in mountainous territory. Or at least you don't really think about them being in mountainous territory or hauling a coal train. And one of those railroads that fits that bill perfectly is the Chicago, Indianapolis, and Louisville Railroad, better known to you and I as the Monon. And it just so happened that back in November 2024, the Monon showed up in coal service here in West Virginia, running up the Piney Creek subdivision down to Quinemont, passing Prince along the way. And when you know it, we went out there to document it. So come along with me as we take a look at this heritage journey as she works southern West Virginia coal fields. The engine came in on a Monday morning on train E200 with 160 cars out of Newport News, Virginia. Hey, wait a minute, we got a hot rail on number 1 track. Hot rail is rail fans slang for, hey, there's a train coming. This is C895, coal loads from Princeton, Indiana to Newport News. Okay, now back to business. This locomotive honors the Monon Railroad, and before we chase this thing, let's take a few minutes to learn about the Monon. The locomotive's road number of 1897 reflects the year the railroad was named the Chicago, Indianapolis, and Louisville Railway. The history of the railroad actually begins in 1847 when a man named James Brooks founded the New Albany and Salem Railroad. 7 years later, the railroad stretched from its namesake in New Albany to Michigan City, Indiana. It was hoped that community would become a great port city on Lake Michigan like Chicago, but this was not meant to be. The New Albany and Salem would overextend itself, and through a series of reorganizations wind up as the CINL, like we said, in 1897. Hoosiers, though, simply called it the Monon route, bringing notoriety to a small town that just so happened to be at the center of the X the road's map created as it crossed Indiana. The town of Monon got its name from the Potawatomi tribe word meaning swift-running water, although the actual railroad at that time was anything but swift-running. Monon was a bridge road that never really generated much online traffic, and thus it walked the financial line for years, entering receivership around 1900 and staying there until after World War II, when the road was transformed by John W. Berger III, who used Monon as a testbed for his concept of a super railroad. The Monon property was by no means a super railroad, a line barely over 500 miles total that claimed no double-track sections at all, and was located entirely within the state of Indiana, was never going to find itself in the same vein as the mighty C&O, New York Central, or Santa Fe. But Berger believed in his railroad. Under his leadership, it was Monon policy where any freight car that came on the railroad would be off the property within 24 hours. A lofty goal indeed, but one they achieved, and that service helped sell the railroad better than any ad could. Much of Monon's passenger business came from college students riding to and from school. As a homage to this fact, the railroad painted passenger equipment in the red, gray, and white of Indiana University, while freight locomotives wore the black and gold of Purdue University. Other schools wear these colors too. In Greencastle and Crawfordsville, Indiana, both towns right on the Monon main line, sit DePaul University and Wabash College. DePaul wears the black and gold while Wabash wears the red and white. The two face each other in a heated rivalry game every football season, and since 1932 they've played for a 300-pound locomotive bell the railroad donated from Engine 99. The game has since become known as the Monon Bell Game, putting the railroad right at the forefront of people's minds for 1 week a year. There were still the problems of finances, though. Nice paint is one thing, but a paint scheme has never moved a ton of freight or one passenger for even a single mile. Needing new equipment for his trains, Berger sought out an option that would appease the finance department. His solution? Surplus Army hospital cars. Able to equip several train sets for roughly half the cost of joining the throngs of railroads ordering new equipment post-war, these cars rolled right out of the Monon shops and into revenue service since they were already on the property. Shops already had a reputation for fine work. In the late 1920s, Monon had its steam roster rebuilt as a cost-saving measure, and the result were locomotives so well built the railroad considered them brand new, even going so far as to affix new builder's plates to their boilers to reflect their status. These locomotives would serve the road until dieselization. Monon was the first Class 1 railroad in this country to completely dieselize, converting the entire roster by 1949. Speaking of Monon diesels, this one's just about ready to go. If you remember this operation from an earlier episode, we're going to take 80 of these cars with us at one time. So we're going to pull, let the conductor cut at the 80 car mark, and then we're going to pull up the branch. I didn't catch them cutting their cars like last time. I jumped across the river here in Prince. Not literally. I jumped across the river in my car to see if I can get a good shot of the side of this thing, and I think it works out. Like I said in the beginning, Monon was not considered a coal railroad, although it did have coal trains and served the southern Indiana coal fields. It also tried to make one last go to keep itself independent using coal. In the early 60s, they tried to get a coal unloading facility built on the Ohio River near Louisville, with the plan essentially to be take coal mined in West Virginia and Kentucky, bring it in by barge, then load it into a rail car so the Monon could haul it to the Great Lakes. As you can imagine, the Appalachian rails like Chesapeake and Ohio and Norfolk and Western were none too thrilled with this and lobbied the government to stop it. And the government sided with C&O and N&W, so that put an end to that. We're here in Mapscott now for our last shot of this engine, and as I waited for the train, I couldn't help but think this has been a fun chase. I got to see one of my favorite railroads out there on my rails, my home rails. I got to see another railroad that I never thought I'd see, and that's part of the fun of Heritage Units. The Monon, like I said, is one of my favorite railroads because of how homespun this railroad is. It truly was Indiana's railroad. Yes, it served Chicago, Indianapolis, and Louisville, but the heart of the Monon was in the small Indiana towns it served. Hoosiers are just like mountaineers. They are proud of their state, and they're proud of where they came from. And guess what? You can't tell the story of Indiana without talking about the Monon. It's just not possible. This was the Hoosier line, and it was so great to see it in West Virginia. Farragut left the railroad in 1952 to pursue other opportunities, and was succeeded as president by Mr. Warren Brown, who continued the success that Farragut had achieved with the Monon. Although the super railroad never came to fruition, Monon was making money, and it actually got out of receivership in 1956 and changed its name officially to the Monon Railroad. A merger mania, though, would forever change the railroad landscape and left the tiny Monon with no choice but to merge to survive. In 1968, it found that partner in the Louisville and Nashville, and the deal was consummated in 1971. On July 31st of that year, the Monon Railroad finally passed into corporate history, bringing it into 124 years of independent ownership. The Monon did become part of a super railroad. The L&M became part of the Seaboard System in 1982, and the Seaboard System is the S in CSX. This is the L&N unit CSX 1850 rolling through Hanley in February 2024. 1850 was the first heritage unit to lead on the old C&O main line through West Virginia. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this program and would like to see more like it, or would like to follow our live sports broadcasts, I invite you to like our Facebook page. Just search up New River Network, you'll be sure and find it. Same thing goes for subscribing to us on YouTube or using our Roku channel. You can also watch us on watchnrn.com. It's a nice website, shows exactly what we're showing in that moment. You can watch live TV online. Or if you're in Fayette County, you can watch us on Channel 4 in the Plateau, Channel 17 down in the valley. So, for the New River Network, I'm